Good morning, Craig. Copa America, European Soccer Championship, you watching that?
Or often has an illustration about sports. So this is just a diversion.
This is just
Just ignore the soccer ball. It has nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about. Well, it wants to express itself here. I am going to talk about it a little later. Do you want to just thank our worship team for their praise this morning? It takes preparing a sermon to see what's behind every Sunday that we enjoy here. We are so blessed to have Clay as our senior pastor. He makes it look effortless to prepare sermons, and I assure you it is not. And I am also thankful for those that step up. I'm also thankful that when Clay isn't here. And I'm also thankful for the A-team being up here because we got a C-team quarterback this morning. So, who said that? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. The passage I want to talk about this morning is a meaningful passage to me because it talks about God as our creator, what he has made. And you know that I spend some time looking at the things that God has made. Maybe you don't know that, but the next slide will show that. He also reveals himself to us in the communication that he has. So as I am observing the stars and the planets, go ahead and switch that. In this observatory, which happens to be in my backyard, which also happens to be named PS19. Anybody have an idea what PS19 is? Psalms 19. So every time I go in to observe at night, I will see this and be reminded that the heavens declare God's glory. And sometimes I've actually told people that this is kind of my altar. This is my place of sort of worship. I couldn't give up the opportunity of showing you a few things that I've actually done as far in this observatory and also recently in Oklahoma where I saw the eclipse with my wife and my sister-in-law. And these are my pictures, so these will be the only ones you have to see this morning. It's kind of like going to someone's house and they want to show you all their latest pictures of the vacation that they've been on. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with that. God's Word is way more exciting than that. But here we have the Orion Nebula, the nebula that is in the dagger or the sword of Orion, the winter constellation. So if you go out and you look into the southern sky, you'll see Orion. This is the little fuzzy spot blowing up. Here's the Sol Nebula, one that I actually have as a screensaver on my phone because I love the way it turned out. But it is part of the Sol, and then up here is the Heart Nebula. I love the themes that some of these things in the sky have. And then this was a particularly good one of planets. This is one of Saturn. But my stuff is not what I want to talk about. Let's talk about Psalms 19. So let's consider looking at the psalm by breaking it up into three different pieces. And you could probably find a different way that you would break it up, but this is the way I found it convenient and helpful to me, is the first 6 verses are really about talking about how God is revealed in everything that he has made, everything that we can see or comprehend. So this would include the universe, the earth, the living natural world, human consciousness, the physical laws that govern the universe, and the moral law. These are all things that you can get a hint of without ever having God speak to you through his word. And then the psalmist goes on in verses 7 through 9, and he talks about God's special revelation. That's where God specifically revealed or spoke to people in his word through the prophets. So he communicated directly on Mount Sinai, and to Moses and to others he spoke specifically. He also reveals himself through the scriptures and those that have authored the scriptures. And most significantly, we get to see who God is revealed through Jesus. Can you imagine a better way to communicate who you are as God than to manifest yourself right in people's faces? So that's the way I'd like. And then lastly, after the psalmist has thought about these things, he responds. And we'll also look at a way to respond. Okay, so I suggested that God reveals himself through the things he's made and that he reveals himself through the things he said, but I think we need to have a little test here. So we are going to have a little test. And this is the creation's test. So here's what I'm going to do to convince you that you can know something about somebody, maybe not significantly know something about somebody, but you can know more than just their name by something they've created. I'm going to give you something, show you pictures of something that someone has created, and then I want you to sort of yell out who it is, and then we'll reveal if you were right. Okay, so Leonardo da Vinci, yes. You got it. I love this. Oh, jump back one, Scott. I love this because most of these artists have some pictures or something they've done that points to God, and this is really cool. The Last Supper was done by Leonardo da Vinci. Okay. Van Gogh, Vincent van Gogh, yes. And anybody happen to know this particular painting? Yes, you guys are so good. Okay. Next one. Michelangelo, you're right. And I love this because this is the hand of God touching Adam, giving us life. Okay, the next. Yes. God the Creator. And guess what? This canvas beats all those other canvases. Him painting the universe. This upper corner here on the left is the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And just this glow that you see, that white glow, those are all stars, billions of stars. This is a galaxy cluster, so way out in space. And this whole picture, every little white dot you see on there is a galaxy. And then our home, Jupiter, and then just some random galaxy out there. There's a trillion of them to choose from, so I just chose one. Okay. Now we're going to go on to the second part of our test. So this might be a little bit harder. These are quotes, so let's look at the first one here. Okay. We choose to go to, and I can't give it totally away, blank, in this decade and do other things, not because they're easy, but because they are hard. John F. Kennedy, you guys are good. Now, how many of you grew up in the Apollo age? So about half of you. Some of you, those that know, explain to the others what the Apollo age is. Oh, Walter Cronkite on the television talking about, I just remember that as growing up a kid. I was very impressed on my psyche about, and my life and love of nature and love of the mountains and love of the stars by the whole pursuit of going to the moon. Okay, the next quote. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Who said that? That's great, Jeannie. Yeah, Martin Luther King, Jr. I love this because I was just picking quotes to have as part of this little quiz, and here it is talking about darkness and light, you know? Some people ask me, what's your favorite color? And my favorite color is black. Because and it used to be blue, but if let me explain. If you take a picture, astronomical picture, you want the background to be black. If it's sort of grayish color, then you have too many city lights. So now my favorite color is black. Okay. Sir, my concern is not whether God is on our side. My greatest concern is to be on God's side, for God is always right. Oh, this one's a little harder, huh? Who said that? Abraham Lincoln, you were right. Yeah. I think this reflects on him as a person, his character. I love this saying, so. Okay. I am who I am. I am the way, the truth, and the life. You're both right, yes. Okay. At the burning bush, God revealed who his name was, but it's more than just revealing what his name was. I am who I am. It's just profound. I think it's one of the more profound verses or statements in the whole Old Testament. I can say that because I'm giving the sermon this morning, but I do think it's pretty profound. And then Jesus saying, I am, and let's just say, I am the only way, right? And I'm the truth. I'm the embodiment of what is true. And I am the life that you have, the life that you could have. It's all in me. So we can learn something from what people previously, what they do, what they've done or made, and what they say. But let's get on to our passage for today. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the works of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. Yet their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the end of the world. Kind of sounds like a riddle a little bit, doesn't it? Like, how in the world do the heavens declare the glory of God? We're going to talk about that. And what is this speech that's being talked about? Well, the first thing is you have to remember that this psalm was written in an era when lots of people believed that the things in the heavens were either God or were gods. And so the first thing it addresses is to say the heavens declare the glory of God. They are not God, and nor do they contain God. Deuteronomy 4:19 reasserts that. It says, and when you look up into the sky and you see the sun and the moon and the stars and all the heavenly array, do not be enticed to bowing down to them and worshiping the things that the Lord your God has apportioned to all the nations under the heavens. So it's a clear declaration. Yeah, the sun god Ra, who the Egyptians worshipped, not a god. Not even a little god with a little g. The next thing you could say is, well, when he talks about this speech that's going on and it reveals knowledge and whatever, oh, you're talking about the zodiac, the horoscopes, right? No. The heavens do not control your life, and they don't speak to anyone's personal destiny. They might speak to all of our collective destiny, but they do not speak to us specifically. And here Isaiah chides the people that believe this. So Isaiah 47:12. Keep on then with your magic spells and with your many sorceries, which you have labored at since childhood. Perhaps you will succeed. Perhaps you will cause terror. All the counsel you have received has only worn you out. Let your astrologers come forward, those stargazers who make predictions month by month. Let them save you from what is going to come upon you. Surely they are like stubble. The fire will burn them up. they cannot even save themselves from the power of the flame. So God has clearly revealed, nope, the stars have no influence on your life. So throw that part of the news, well, we don't even have newspapers anymore, but throw that part away. Well, maybe it's saying this. So in the ancient world, the zodiac, or the names of the constellations in the sky, were potentially telling a story. So maybe this is the speech that's poured forth. Maybe this is what the psalmist was talking about. So, for example, the constellation Virgo is representative of the Virgin. Hydra, Serpens, and Scorpio are all about snakes and dragons and whatever. Taurus is the judge, the shepherd, Argura, and the Lion of Judah could be Leo. And the sacrifice of Jesus, maybe Aries, the sheep, or Capricorn or Libra. The stars also, and not just in Hebrew, because we were talking about the Mazzaroth, but in a lot of these ancient languages, the stars have names that are significant to a redemptive story. But that's not what I want to talk about. I'm not an expert in that. What I would suggest is you might find it interesting to investigate that and see that the perspective that these words that were revealed are in the skies, and all of these cultures actually saw and were reminded of that redemptive story. But another one that you could say is, well, okay, Paul talks about it as well. He agrees with that. In Romans 1:18-20, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood what has been made, so that people are without excuse. Well, that's interesting. What are those invisible qualities in just the heavens? I understand that God's attributes are communicated, that he's communicated what they are, but how could you find them in the skies or in the heavens? Well, I can talk about a scientific perspective. So let's talk about general revelation from a scientific perspective. So we're just going to look at what we can know about God without him specifically saying, this is what I'm like. First of all, God is vast. If you think about the size of the universe, you're going to go, we know that God is omnipresent. He's everywhere. We believe that, right? All Christian believers believe that they can have communication with God. And so he's in communication with everybody around the world simultaneously. But what about the whole universe? If he's in the whole universe as well, that's really amazing. And I want to, and now we're going to talk about the soccer ball. Okay, so I love to talk about size by doing things that are called scale, where you look at the scale of something. So if you've ever had Matchbox toys, and all the little boys or dolls, they're all a shrunk down version of the real thing. So that would be scale. So if I take the sun and I squeeze it down to the size of this soccer ball, how far away is the Earth from this ball? Any guesses out there? How many? Well, it's 93 million miles, but compared to this soccer ball, how far? 200 miles. I think that was probably that was the back row. Well, that's a really good guess if you wanted huge size, but first of all, can anybody see the head of this pin? You kind of can see it, right? Okay. This is how big the Earth is compared to the sun. Yeah, pretty small. This little dot, and you can come up afterwards if you're curious about the size comparison. This little pinhead here would back behind that curtain. Can you see the curtain in that back room? Just beyond that curtain, that's where this would be. So this is just the distance between the sun and the earth on scale. The next thing about the scale of the universe that I find fascinating is, okay, the next soccer ball. Okay, so the closest star to the earth, Alpha Centauri. Well, it's actually Proxima Centauri if you're really specific, but another basketball, right, or another soccer ball. How far away? Any guesses? Did he say 1,500? 15 miles? 4,000 miles away from this soccer ball. London, England, the very, very closest star to us at that scale. I just want you to absorb that a little bit. If you've driven to Chicago, if you've flown to New York City, if you've flown to England, that's the closest one, and there's billions of these stars out here. Next illustration. So that's the vastness of the universe. And the universe is, scientists will say that right now, if you looked at the measurement from one side to the other side, that the universe is 90 billion light years across. Not 90 billion. Okay, the next thing about the vastness of the universe. If you take and go to the beach, or any beach, and you grab and look at the grains of sand, and then you see the length of the beach, it is suggested that there are more stars in the heavens than there are grains of sand on every beach in the whole world. And maybe you could add every grain of sand in every desert as well. Have you ever sifted, like, who are you, God? Who are you? Well, if that's the vastness and size, what about omnipotence, being all-powerful? Okay, now you have this vast number of stars. How much energy does it take to make a star? In the 60s, or maybe it was the late 50s, the United States tested a nuclear weapon in Bikini Atoll in the South Pacific. It was rated at 15 megatons of TNT explosive power. When it exploded, it left a hole 6,000 feet in diameter, or more than a mile, a hole right in the island. The mushroom cloud, or the fireball, was 4.5 miles in diameter and rose to hundreds of thousands of feet up in the sky. That would be equivalent to a loaf of bread being turned into pure energy. Just a loaf of bread. And now we're talking about all these billions of stars. I hope what I'm trying to do is give you an idea that God is way more than we can imagine. The whole universe, his omniscience, so that his all-knowing ability, some authors suggest there's 22, some authors suggest there's 60 finely tuned parameters on which life, the universe, the earth, the moon, and all of those things are finely tuned. And I'm talking about a picture you could have in your mind is if I took 100 pencils and put them on a sheet of glass and stood them all up, and to have them all stand up simultaneously without falling over. That kind of level of finely tuned. God also is transcendent, means we can see from the universe that he's created that he is outside of time, because time was created when the universe came into existence. So he's outside of time. You would say, well, if there is a God, then he would have to be outside of the thing that he created. So time would be something he created as well. I'm going to give you two examples here at the last of the sort of scientific things, and then we'll leave science for a while. What are two of the things that show God was protecting us? In the Milky Way galaxy, we reside out about 2/3 of the way out from the center. The center is volatile and explosive, and there's stars, and there's huge amounts of radiation. So to be 2/3 of the way out is away from all that chaos. And if you go too far out, there isn't enough created elements to create the world that we reside on. We live in this really little, narrow, protective window. When I talked about how far that other star is about, we also live in a non-crowded area. So I can pretty well assure you that you will never have to worry about a star colliding with our Earth. We're in a protected area. The other thing is just another illustration is the magnetic field of the Earth. How many of you got to see the Northern Lights when they're in their beauty about 3 weeks ago? Anybody? Yeah. You probably didn't see it with your eye, but if you used your phone, you might have seen it. And it was magnificent. That was a very dangerous event if we had not had a magnetic field. The Earth would have been hurling all those high-energy particles at us, and we would probably all end up with cancer. But God, in his wisdom, created an Earth that has an iron core, it's magnetic, and it protects us. And you can go on a list just that keeps going and going and going and going about this is a demonstration of God's love toward us, his protection of us, and it has nothing to do with what he said to us. Let's go on with the passage. In the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. It's like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run its course. It rises at one end of the heavens, and it makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived from its warmth. Okay, one more science thing. That little dot is Venus. So Venus passed in front of the sun, and it turns out that the Earth is about the same size as Venus. So that's about how big the Earth or Venus are compared to the size of the sun. So what was the psalmist trying to say? Well, first of all, I think this whole issue where we talked about earlier, where he was addressing the belief of their culture, that the sun and moon are not gods, they are not God. Because the problem was that the sun was widely worshipped in the Near East. Almost all the nations around there, the Assyrians, the Egyptians, the Canaanites, they all had this belief. So he's addressing that initially. And he addresses that by saying, God pitched a tent. He's saying, God put the sun in a place for a specific role. So he addresses that. And then he goes on and talks about, but the sun is metaphorically, if you know poetry, the sun is metaphorically representative of God. His radiant warmth is over the whole earth. We know that the warmth from the sun causes the circulation of moisture in the atmosphere. It rains on us. There's no place on the earth where the sun doesn't shine. I mean, there are places during winter at the poles where it doesn't shine for a while, but the whole earth is exposed. So metaphorically, God radiates his love and his warmth and his attention over all of us. The law of the Lord is perfect. So now he's going into talking about something other than general revelation. The law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy. They make wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, bringing joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The decrees of the Lord are firm, and all of them are righteous. Let's talk about this a little bit. Oh, let me finish it up. These precepts and laws, they are more precious than gold, than much pure gold. They are sweeter than honey from the honeycomb. And by them your servant is warned, and in keeping them there is great reward. Okay, now let's talk about it. So, verse 7 says, the law of the Lord is perfect. Well, what does that reveal about God when we look at... So, earlier we talked about specific revelation, that God's word, the laws, reveal something about him. Here the psalmist is saying that the Lord is perfect. Well, what does that mean? That means he's complete, he's holy, he's sinless. So we know that attribute about him from his revealed nature. He's trustworthy. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. He does what he promises. That's why God is trustworthy. He does what he promises. He has the power to act on his promises, and there's nothing that can stop him from acting on his promises. He knows what's the best thing to do, and even the immature, as the passage says, even those that are simple can benefit from understanding who God is. He's right. It says that his precepts are right. Well, how do right precepts give us joy? Well, all I have to do is point to social media, and we'll go, do I believe that? Is that true? Well, what God says is true. It doesn't have to be questioned. We don't have to sit around and think, I wonder if that's tainted. I wonder if that information isn't correct. But God's precepts are good, and that's what gives us joy. We don't have to spend time worrying about, well, I don't know if that's really true. I don't know if he still loves me. I still don't know if what he said is something I really should do. He reveals. So God radiates. The commands of the Lord are radiant. They expose stuff. I have this war with this big picture window in my house. I'll go out there and Cheryl will say, well, it's time to clean it off. And I'll go out there and clean off the window, both the inside and outside. And then the sun will come up and you'll go, I thought I cleaned that window. I can't believe it's still dirty. And you can see the little evidences of streaks and whatever. I think that's kind of like God's. His commands radiate down. They expose. But in a really good way. Wouldn't you want to know when something's dirty? Instead of just living life with the thing just filthy and hanging on to things. So his commands, they give light to our eyes. They let us see what is not right. This one catches people. Fear the Lord? You're saying I should fear the Lord? Aren't we supposed to trust him and love him? So let me explain this a little bit. I'll give an illustration. Our family, a number of years ago, went to Yellowstone Park. And if you've been to Yellowstone Park, you'll know that the Yellowstone River runs through the park and creates this large canyon. And there are several falls on the Yellowstone River. But the lower falls is this large cascading water coming down. And the Park Service has allowed you to go on a path where you can come right up to the edge. So you're right here, and that falls is just careening down over that cliff. And you go. And so you're really close to it, right? So I'm close to it. But I would never go like, let's dive in and take a swim, right? That's the fear of the Lord. He is scary awesome. And the best practice is don't trivialize God. don't test him. It would be like trying to swim with that fast current, and you know the outcome. But does that make God someone that we should fear? In the Chronicles Narnia, there was a story where Tumnus came in and he was talking to the Provencia children, and he has this conversation, and they found out that Aslan, the great lion, was, and the story goes that he is the likeness of God, or Jesus, and the kids are going, well, he's a lion, is he safe? And Mr. Tumnus says, no, he's not safe, but he's kind. That really is the idea. So why does he say the fear of the Lord is pure then? Well, if you don't fear the Lord, I would say that you're tainted in a way. You're not pure any longer. You have something that's preventing you from really understanding reality. So the fear of the Lord, it really is pure. And then lastly, the decrees of the Lord are firm. You can count on them. They're stable. They're not going to change. They're rooted in something that lasts. Okay. And then about the value of God's word to us. How much would you pay to know the truth about something? Years ago when a little boy was kidnapped, and we didn't find out for years that he was gone. Maybe you remember the name, Jacob Wetterling. What would those parents have paid to know what happened to him in all those intervening years? So the truth is really worth something. So is God's truth like gold to us? Abandoning the law, so not finding God's word sweet. So it's sweeter than honey. And so by comparison, if you abandon God's laws, his ways, it turns justice into bitterness. So God's laws are better than the bitterness option. And then the last one here, the moral law marks the way that leads to life. Deuteronomy says, walk in obedience to all the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live and prosper and prolong your days in the land that you will possess. So following God's ways should make us thrive. And now the psalmist responds, I've seen God in the heavens. I've seen him described in his words. How do I respond to that? But who can discern their own errors? Forgive my hidden faults. Keep your servant also from willful sins. May they not rule over me. And then I will be blameless, innocent of great transgression. May these words of my mouth and this meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, Lord, my rock and my redeemer. So the psalmist does some self-examination. He says, based on all this other stuff that I've just talked about, who am I compared to God and his power and his perfection? I'm broken. How can I even know what my own faults are? My perspective is so cloudy, I might not even know what my own faults are. Boy, I should confess even the things I don't know about. Not confessing, we could go round and round on this one, but admitting that I don't know everything is a pure thing. That's admitting to God what is true. I'm weak, verse 13. Keep your servant from willful sin. So he's thinking, wait a minute, not only are there things that are hidden to me, but there are things I actually do. I'm weak. I need your help to overcome my sinful nature. I don't want them to control me. I really want to be blameless, and blamelessness is found in Jesus' righteousness. He gives his righteousness to us. And then the last one, I'm paraphrasing here. These words that I'm speaking, so this first part, general revelation, specific revelation, I hope they're pleasing to you. Are they honoring to you, God? Are they true? Do I examine the things I say, and are they true? And I do believe they're true, and I agree with them. May you be pleased that I'm even thinking about this. Okay. Last one. So, what are we supposed to do with this passage? I appreciate that it always reminds me about God, but if we look at what the psalmist responds, after he's talked about these lofty thoughts, he might ask this question, we might ask this question, is God's word precious to me? Is it more valuable to me than gold? Is it really sweet to me? Do I question my perspective? If I don't know about my own faults, do I question my perspectives and motivations? Or do I always feel that I'm right? That I have no errors? Okay, it's a red flag if you start thinking you don't have any faults. Then you should be concerned. And do I regularly acknowledge who God is and who I am in his eyes? My Lord, my rock, and my Redeemer. And then lastly, a response. So we're paraphrasing what the psalmist said. God, please reveal and forgive my hidden faults. I know they're there. Please forgive them. God, strengthen me to make the right decisions. Deliver me from bad habits and consuming appetites. I know they're there. I want to live I want to live in a blameless relationship with you. Please transform me. Let's close by prayer and ask God for some of these things. Lord, it's always revealing when I think about who you are, the vastness and the powerfulness, and yet the intimate connection that you have with us. Don't let us believe that we can't be more connected to you. Help us to appreciate the blamelessness that you give us in exchange for, well, really nothing. You let us have Jesus' righteousness, which we do not deserve. But we are so grateful that you give it to us. Lord, as we think about the future, as we think about the challenges that we have today, I'm glad, I'm overwhelmed that you are on our side. You are so capable. And as we think about the future, I'm excited to see you in the right time. It will be glorious. Thanks for our time together. Amen.